What is up, guys? Today was a very special day for the Starfield community. The developers put on a Q&A where they answered 16 questions submitted by the community, you guys, and I'm going to take a deep dive into the 16 questions and let you know what I think. So enjoy the video. Make sure to like the video and subscribe down low, and we'll catch you soon. All right, guys. Well, we have the Discord pulled up. And the way that this works, we have the questions, all 16 lined up right here. We're going to go question by question through, starting off with question 1, and I'll kind of just give you my insights into all of the questions. So let's start with question 1. Can we buy houses or property in main cities? Okay, so this was the first question. Will responds, yep. There's housing in different cities that the player can get. Some you have to purchase, and some are rewards for special quests. And then Emil says, sure you can. You can purchase a dwelling in all major cities in the game, and there's at least one that you get specifically for completing something. So I think this is awesome news. I think a lot of us were thinking that the outposts and all of the building that we get to do, and even our spaceship, would kind of replace any of the kind of houses that we would get to live in, but I'm glad that this isn't the case. And I find it fascinating that they say there's at least one that you get for specifically completing something. So I think this could potentially be like a similar system in Skyrim, you know, where you would do a quest for the Jarl and they would give you some stuff. Maybe it's going to be the same for each city in Starfield, where you have like New Atlantis' president, whoever, the diplomat, whatnot. You do a quest for them and then they give you a house or something. Maybe I could be wrong, but I think there's something that we're going to get from a quest. So I think this is pretty awesome news. I'm excited to be able to have house, at least to dump all my loot. I'm curious if we're going to be able to leave any of our companions there. So that's the first question to start it off. Moving on to question 2. So question 2 is, if we get the kids' stuff trait, will our parents be generated based on our character's look, or are there standard parents put in place? What benefits might there be? Will says, our programmers on our new face tech were excited to make a function that could try to match your custom face and then create the two parents. So they are based on what your character looks like. Although the specific math involved is a bit beyond me, we had a similar tech in our previous games. And then Emil says something very similar. Yes, totally, just as we did in Fallout 3 with your dad and Fallout 4 with your son in Starfield. In Starfield, if you take the kid stuff trait, your parents are based off of you. No spoilers, but I think fans will really appreciate the actors we got to play those roles, and they just get so into it. It's awesome. Oh, and yeah, you can get stuff. So a little cryptic, and I kind of like how they ran this whole Q&A. Like, they didn't give any spoilers. They kept it really cryptic, which I'm looking forward to, just to be able to see, you know, all of the news. That's awesome. So I think this is interesting. Again, nothing out of the ordinary with what they had in Fallout 3 and Fallout 4, but getting to have parents that are based off of our character is going to be super dope. And then I think we see here, no spoilers, but I think the fans will really appreciate the actors we got to play those roles. So this is a common thread that we saw through this Q&A, that at least Emil is really excited for us to see and hear all the different voice actors and how he thinks it's going to be a big part to the main quest and everything. And I agree. You know, other BSG games, BGS games, didn't have great voice acting, and I think this is going to be a great place to see Starfield hopefully shine. So this is exciting that we get to see some custom parents. Question number 3. This is a big question. For those of us who have never played a BGS game and will be starting with Starfield, what information should we know that will make the experience more impactful right from the start? How deep should we go into creating our character's backstory before we start the game? So the developers had a lot to say about this. So Emil started us off by saying, well, we always make our games for fans, both old and new, so you can jump in without ever having played a Bethesda title before. Just to stop there, I think that's fantastic news. I don't think Bethesda has created any kind of game with a high skill ceiling, or just like you need to know a lot. Like, I don't know, I think of No Man's Sky, or like a completely different genre, but Escape from Tarkov, where, and even Warframe, but you have to know so much prior to starting the game. It's, at least reassuring from what we've seen. I don't think anybody expected for the systems to be so in depth that it was going to push, newer fans away. But it's glad to see that that's at least confirmed. But Will picked it up by saying, while we do start off in the same spot, what happened to you before the game starts is totally up to you in your head canon. Emil says, but we like to look at it less as playing a game and more about living in the universe we created. So settle in, go at your own pace, and pretty soon you'll learn all the systems and be adventuring through the settled systems the way you choose. Will says, there's a trait and background system that will let you specify more about yourself, but you can also select an anonymous background and no traits if you want. In terms of if you've never played a BGS game before, try anything. We're a simulation as well as a role-playing game, so we try to support the player doing what they want as much as we can. And then Emil says, and this is, I think, no, that's what Will said. But Emil says, as for going into a character's backstory, that's entirely up to you. I'm all about the headcanon. For example, my latest character is working schlub named Mitch Dombrowski. Let's go, Mitch. He's a husky, good-natured space trucker, and while he'll do whatever he needs to defend himself, he'll never shoot first. He's like Han Solo's sweeter older brother. And yes, there are traits and backgrounds that support that kind of thing. So from this, I think it's reassuring that it's going to be a good balance for people that want somewhat of a complex system with the economy, with the spaceship building, with outposts, all of the farming kind of stuff. That's reassuring. I really like how they're incorporating the different starting mod in Skyrim kind of into Starfield, especially with this part here where Will says, but you can also select an anonymous background and no traits if you want. I think that's going to open up the door for a lot of interesting gameplay. So I'm glad they answered that. On to question number 4. Again, another sweet question. How will the smuggling cargo system work? Can we hide it somewhere on the ship and sell it for more currency later? Will says, certain items are considered contraband and you'll need to smuggle them past security ships that are in orbit of major settlements. Emil says, there are specific items that are considered contraband, meaning they're pretty much illegal everywhere. And yes, you can hide them using special ship modules you can purchase. So don't get caught with those harvested organs. So a couple specific details here that I wanted to touch on. The fact that there are specific parts that you can add to your ship in probably the easy clip space model builder that will allow you to hide contraband or illegal items. So I'm curious if those parts themselves are contraband or not. Just a little curious as to how we actually add those to the ships, but that's pretty sweet. So I'm really excited to see the whole way that, going and flying by the Space Patrol police with contraband in your ship, how that actually works out. It's going to be exactly like Star Wars. I think of like Mandalorian, where Mando gets pulled over by the Empire and his ship's out of date. I think it's just going to give way for a lot of sick gameplay. The one sad thing, though, is that Emil says here that the economy is fixed, but prices of bought and sold goods can change based on the skills you choose. So this is like every other Bethesda Game Studios game up to this point, where if your speech is good, or if you're leveling up your speech or your commerce abilities, whatever it is in this game, you can get cheaper prices. That being said, the economy's fixed, so there's not going to be any changing prices based off of supply and demand, which is, I think we're all looking forward to a little bit more of a complex system. But it is what it is. I'm really pumped for the contraband system. I'm really excited to see, is there a black market? Is that economy fixed? I don't know, but super stoked for that. Question 5, will there be a jail system if we committed crimes? Will says, yes, you can elect to go to jail or pay a fine when you're arrested, or even resist arrest and try to escape. And then Emil says, yep, the settled systems is more like Skyrim than Fallout 4's Commonwealth in that regard. You bunch of criminals. There's civilization, there's government, and there are laws, and in a couple of cases, we actually explore the themes of crime and punishment in our futuristic universe. So I think this system is just like classic Bethesda, where you're going to get approached by a space arbiter or space police, and they're going to say, hey, you broke this crime, you can either pay this fine or you can go to prison, and then you can like exit out of the conversation, and then it's going to start the combat. I'm really interested to see how OP the police are in this. I know in Skyrim, like no shot. You can't escape them. But I'm sure the jail system, I think going to jail and trying to escape could be very, very fascinating and fun, especially in a futuristic space environment. I think of, like, again, Star Wars with Andor. You know, that whole prison break was awesome. So I think that will be pretty sweet. And then question 6. Will time pass when not in a game? For example, will my trade routes, outposts, and mining operations continue to produce, or does that only occur while actively playing? Really basic question. Emil says the sim only runs when you're actively playing, no sleeping on the job. Will says only when actively playing. I like how Emil refers to Starfield as the sim. I think this is going to be awesome, but I don't think anybody was expecting to be able to turn off the game and have, you know, all of our farms continue to operate. So there's no sweatshops or anything like that. Easy question, a little bit mid if you ask me. But question 7, can you be a double agent in the game? For example, if you join the United Colonies, can you also join the Crimson Fleet and give the United Colonies information? And what factions have that feature if they do? So Will says all of the playable factions can be completed independently. So didn't really answer the question there. I think that's just a fact that we probably all knew. Emil says, that's exactly what you can do. Infiltrate the Crimson Fleet for UC's system sysdev. It's specific to that quest line. Will Shen says the Crimson Fleet storyline does feature you being an undercover agent inside the fleet on behalf of UC SysDef, a specific military branch of the United Colonies. But whether you betray the fleet or UC SysDef is a choice you will get to make. And then Emil just talked about, like, where they kind of got inspiration from that. So I don't think they didn't really answer the question. So we're going to be able to do all the different factions in the game. Like with the Thieves Guild, with Dawn Guard, all of that. And in terms of, you know, being able to betray anybody like at the whim, I don't think that's going to be in the game. I think it's going to be exactly like Dawn Guard. This entire thing that they're talking about with Crimson Fleet and everything is like Dawn Guard, where, you know, you have the choice to join the vampires or to stay with Dawn Guard. That being said, I still think, you know, we'll see some twists in the main quest line, but no becoming double agent for nothing. Question number 8. Depending on traits selected during character creation, will it at all be possible to play through the game in a pacifist mode, i.e. without killing anyone or even potentially anything? Well, I hope people who come to Starfield and are excited to play aren't necessarily excited for the pacifist mode. But that's just me. I'm excited to get some space fights in. Will says, I can't guarantee every mission can be completed in a pacifist mode, but we do have a couple systems that will help. So we talked about this very early, and then Emil goes on to say, so we talked about this very early on during pre-production, whether or not we would fully support a non-lethal playthrough. We realized that for various reasons that wasn't totally feasible. I won't go into much more of what they have to say, but what they have to say is, you know, through your charismatic tree or whatever skill tree that Starfield has for speech, you're going to be able to upgrade that to, you know, hopefully entice people to not have to fight. But that being said, you're not going to be able to go through the game without killing anybody. Nor this isn't giving me the impression that they have like a special thing if you are able to do it in a pacifist way. But I could be wrong. I'm not particularly looking forward to going through the galaxy without touching a fly. But all right, question number 9. This is where it gets interesting. What are the beliefs and basic history of the religions we can join? Sanctum, Universum, Enlightened, and Great Serpent. So this is super fascinating. I love that this was a question. So Emil starts off by saying, okay, so this one ... And Will says, yeah. Emil says, existing IRL religions are part of Starfield universe, with folks of all religions and denominations out there, but we don't really focus on them. Instead, we highlight 3 new ones specific to the game. So that's fascinating. So it seems like, you know, our classic monotheistic religions, Christianity, Judaism, and Islam are going to be in the game, and then probably other ones, Hinduism, Buddhism, but they're not highlighting those. Then they start to get into the 3 new religions. So we have the Sanctum Universum, which is kind of like a mix between, you know, our classic Hinduist Buddhist, and then monotheistic religions. So Will says the Sanctum Universum is only a couple decades old in our timeline, but has gained a lot of prominence. They believe that God is out there, somewhere in the universe, and that humanity's ability to travel to the stars brings us closer to God. Emil continues by saying, the members, called Universals, believe that God very much exists somewhere in the universe, that a higher power is guiding us all. Specifically, that they believe that humanity's ability to travel the universe in grav jump is God's way of saying, I'm out here, come find me. So that's pretty interesting. I think it's a little funny that, you know, God is somewhere sitting in a rock and saying, come find me. He's not really transcendent or big. So it's funny, but I like how they have history of this religion. And then they have the Enlightened. Will says the Enlightened are an atheist group that focus on humanitarian and community work. They believe that life is something every person has to take responsibility for, so that if we want the world to be a better place, then we have to do it. Emil also says these folks are essentially organized atheists. They don't believe in any kind of higher power. Rather, they teach that human beings have to take care of each other, and they practice what they preach through various community outreach programs. Interesting. I don't know. I'm curious how that will play out in game. It's not too interesting, but all right. On to the next one, the House Veron. So this is what Emil has to say about them. This is the third religion, definitely the coolest. So in the game, you're not really sure what the complete truth is, but the gossip among the guards is this: a colony ship sets off for a new world, making grav jumps along the way. After one of the grav jumps, one of the passengers claims he spent that time communing with a celestial entity known as the Great Serpent. What was a few seconds for everyone else was much longer for him, and he brought back a mandate which is basically get on board or be devoured when the Great Serpent encircles the universe. Is it true? I ain't saying. So again, I like how, you know, at least with the religions in here, they're not like pushing anything on anybody. No, the truth isn't known, but I like how, you know, we have a little crazy group like I don't even know how to pronounce it, but the House Run, with, you know, the mentality that the end is near, and, you know, they say, or at least Emil says later, that these are kind of the zealots, and you're going to be fighting these guys. So I think that is going to be really interesting. I think the play with all of these religions could be interesting in the main quest, seeing some kind of like crusades type thing. I'm curious to see how the atheist group plays into both, you know, the Sanctum Universum and then the Snake group, but I think it will be really, really awesome. Question 10: how many companions total will you be able to recruit? This is also cool. So there are over 20 named characters who can join your crew. That's awesome. So they keep going down to say, and I'll kind of just summarize it, that, you know, from past games, they understand how having more and more companions is an awesome thing. So I think not only are you able to recruit them to join your crew, but they're going to be a big part in the main story, in the main quest, which I think is awesome. You know, in Skyrim and in other Bethesda games, you're the only person in your story. You're not really having any close relationships with people who are, you know, putting a huge part into the story. Like in Skyrim with Lydia, you know, she's not doing much. But in this, I hope that the characters who join your crew are, you know, going to add a lot to the story. You know, potentially have some big plot twists with some backstabbing, some deceit. I think that could be awesome. And on top of that, again, Emil says, I should also mention that our companion voice cast is amazing. So they're really hyping up the voice casting. I'm excited for it. But the fact that we're able to have 20 named characters who can join our crew, I think that's going to be awesome. They at least say over as well, so maybe we can get more. All right, question 11. When we assign crew members to work at outposts, do we have to pay them salaries? A little bit of a stupid question. So they basically say, no, we're not paying them salaries. We're just paying them an upfront fee. They say the reason why is because they don't want players to have to, you know, have several different things that they need to worry about while they're playing. I think it's true. So yeah, no salaries. Question number 12. Let's see, where are you? Okay. Will our companions be able to level up their perks? Will their perks be stacked with ours? So this is interesting. If our companions will, you know, have perks of their own. So Will says, all crews start with a set of skills in specific ranks. Emil says they don't level up, but they come at different ranks depending on the companion. Will continues, so you might meet a character that's especially good at rifles and you hire them to watch your back, or you might meet an astrodynamics expert that will increase your grav jump range when assigned to your ship. And then Emil finishes off by saying, well, we call them skills in Starfield, and they do stack with yours when relevant. Some are there for flavor, to highlight the companions' backgrounds and interests, but you really feel the benefits of the ship in combat-related ones. Getting a boost to your shields or seeing your companion laying down fire with a weapon they're proficient in are pretty sweet moments. So there's no, like, the companions aren't going to be growing with you over a course of time. Like, they're not going to be leveling up with you necessarily. You're going to find particular people to bring in on your crew that already have skills assigned to them. So, you know, these characters are already in the game as, you know, an ex-military person who's going to be great at, you know, shooting a gun, or you're going to have a scientist who left his university who's going to be able to help you run your ship really well, and, like they said, increase your grav jump range. So not super in depth, but the fact that they have companions who are going to be able to do so many different things for you is pretty sweet. They're at least expanding on it. So question number 13. What are your favorite parts of the game? So they didn't really answer this straight up. So I'll just highlight it again. So they were just talking about how, you know, both Emil and Will are doing different things for Starfield, in that would force them to like different things about the game because they've spent so much time with it. The main thing that they were harping on, again, is the voice casting and the music for the game, and I totally agree about that. I think the music is going to be awesome, or at least I hope it's going to be awesome. You know, I hope all the boys can get in the bathroom to have some Halo-like moments, but with Starfield. The other thing that they did mention was the cities. Again, I think the cities are going to be awesome. New Atlantis, dope, and Emil specifically said neon, that, you know, cyberpunk style of city in space. And going back to the first question, you know, with buying a house, I'm hoping, like, maybe we can get a high rise, you know, in a city in New Atlantis. I just think there's awesome potential for the cities. I'm looking forward to the music, and I think the voice casting, you know, will probably be good. Question number 14. What books or movies had a big influence on some of the quests? Great question. I was interested in this myself. Will says, I'm a history nerd, so I actually listen to a lot of podcasts like Hardcore History and the History of Rome. Emil says, well, I'm a child of late 70s, early 80s, and I have very fond memories of the sci-fi of that time, so let me think. Will says, while our game is science fiction, I like how historians can tell you about how human beings react to extreme circumstances like war, famine, and technological breakthroughs, and you can imagine how we'd react to similar circumstances in a fictional setting, just at a grander scale. So pause there. I think it's really sweet to see how they're getting a lot of inspiration from history, because I think this game, you know, we already see that it's really grounded. You know, people have been coining it as like a NASA punk, you know, like just a little spin-off of NASA, just NASA a couple years into the future. I think the fact that they're grounding it in history is only going to add to that element. So I'm super stoked for that. I'm super stoked to see if, you know, we're able to see any kind of similarities with stuff in history. Emil then goes more in the sci-fi route. So they say Star Wars, OG Battlestar Galactica, Space, 1999, Buck Rogers, Battle Beyond the Stars, Ice Pirates, and let's not forget the classic that is Metal Sword, The Destruction of Jarrett Sin. I think I actually saw this one in 3D. So, and then he continues to say, but also much headier sci-fi stuff like the writings of Arthur C. Clarke and Robert Heinlein, or films like Contact, Interstellar, 2001: A Space Odyssey, and Event Horizon. That's sick. I love that they're getting inspiration from headier sci-fi, or that they mentioned that. I know Interstellar, for me, was one of Christopher Nolan's best movies, but seeing the heavy pull on theory of relativity and how with time that has significant implications, I hope that's incorporated into this. And at least with one of the religions that talked about how, you know, the guy who experienced or met with the serpent, it felt like a second for him, but to everybody on the outside, it felt like a long time. For me, that just screams Interstellar. And then Emil finishes off by saying, in all of those examples, you realize that outer space is two things. Number one, a source of mystery and wonder, sometimes terror. And two, a giant blank page on which you can write any story, and we have written a lot of very different stories in Starfield, and I just want to ditto that out the freaking wazoo. I'm super stoked about these two things that they mentioned. The fact that space is mysterious and, like, there's a lot of wonder in it, and it's also terrifying. facts of space being a mystery and a wonder is also terrifying. And then 2, the fact that it's a blank page. We get to write our story. And the fact that there are a lot of very different stories in Starfield. I'm super excited for the main quest. But that's question 14. Question 15, what are some favorite small details in Starfield to add to the immersion? Not that great of a question. That's fine. They talk about, like Emil says here, the NASA punk theme. That's their theme, kind of the visual artistic art style. Will continues to talk about the outfits, the shipbuilding, how that's going to be a complex system, and the music and the voice casting. Again, they talk about. I'm hoping that lives up to snuff. Then they bring in this weird thing about Adam Savage from MythBusters, filming a model of the frontier. The little things, I think, is going to be the music. I think the music's going to be awesome. I'm really interested to see how they are able to add the immersion with the procedural generation, with feeling that people live there. I think seeing NPCs in the cities, like at Neon and New Atlantis, is going to be massive. I know like other games had struggled with that. So we'll see. I have high hopes for Bethesda that they're going to be able to fulfill with this in creating the immersion. But last question 16. What is the history of the mechs? And then Emil says, ooh, the mechs, good one. So we showed this a bit in one of the animated shorts, which I haven't seen, but he says the mechs are leftovers from the Colony Wars. No, it's Colony War, and not Colony Wars, singular. Both sides, United Colonies and Freestar Collective, had mechs, but the Freestar Collective really mastered them. The United Colonies had mechs too, but they also relied on the controlled alien beasts from Xeno Warfare Division. Both of those were outlawed with the armistice that ended the Colony War. I'm not saying there's an old mech battleground in the game, I'm typing it. So a little coy there, a little funny. I get mad like Clone Wars from Star Wars with this, with the mechs being used by both sides. You have the Separatists who completely relied on all of the battle droids, and you had the Republic who utilized the clone troopers, but also had droids as well. So I think we'll be seeing some factions who are continuing to use mechs. I think we'll be fighting mechs. So these 16 questions, I think, helped to get people really stoked for the game, especially for me, seeing the emphasis on the voice acting and the music and just the immersion in general, and a little bit of the questions answered with the jail system, the economy, outposts. I think the game's going to be awesome. I think it's going to be awesome for new people. I think it's going to be awesome for people who are looking for a in-depth game. Guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the update just as much as I did. If it was any benefit to you, please, I just ask that you subscribe down below, like the video, give me a comment, let me know what you thought, and hey, have a great day.